You're listening to Lifestyle Blueprints, discussions to help build a life of your own design. My name is Josh Hoskins. Welcome to the show. Okay, everyone, it is episode 1. How's it going? I'm doing great. I wanted to kick off the show with a topic that I think is really near and dear to Legendary, and I think is also something that is worth pondering for anyone who has a lifestyle built around socializing, going out, trying new things, exploring new entertainment style experiences, something that I really enjoy to do, something that Legendary Life Media covers a lot of. For reference, I'm the founder of Legendary Life Media. We're a success and lifestyle publication, but we also cover a lot of peak entertainment experiences. We got our start in the EDM scene. Those were some of our biggest breakout pieces, events that we got to cover. And it really got me thinking because more and more I'm noticing people getting involved in the rave culture, especially since the pandemic, like 6 years ago. I have a few reasons that I suspect that's happening for. I'm going to get into those in a little bit. But I really wanted to make an episode about that topic in case you're someone who is looking to explore that scene, looking for alternatives to the traditional nightlife experiences that are out there if bars and nightclubs are getting old to you, and just kind of laying out what the landscape looks like from a lifestyle perspective, seeing if it's something that could be for you or not. So I really didn't get into EDM proper until a Legendary started covering EDM events, interestingly enough. I was always somewhat of a fan of EDM music. I liked dubstep, but I wasn't really like that tuned in to all the different facets of electronic dance music or raving or festivals or anything like that. I've learned a lot over the past couple of years, but I think it's a particularly interesting topic because I have noticed a lot of people shifting away from the traditional like nightclub, bar crawl, bar hopping, social experience. There's still a lot of that going on, and I'm actually kind of sad about that because I love nightclubs and I love going to bars, and I love that aspect of any city. I love that experience, hanging out with friends. I still like to party. I also have some reasons why I kind of understand why there is a shift toward the rave and festival experience compared to the traditional nightlife experience. Part of that has to do with getting into like sober culture. I've noticed a little bit of that, even though there's definitely a lot of substance, related things happening at raves. Absolutely. So I think that's actually kind of funny. I think there's some other reasons too, which I'll get into. I think the big one that I'd like to really dive into first is it's a really big indication of how people are reframing like their own social life and social experiences from being an escape from their life to merging it into their overall identity that they're building for themselves. I'm kind of reminded of Pitbull. What was the song? I forget who he made it with, but it's like, I knew my rent was going to be late a week ago. I worked my ass off, but still can't pay it though. Like, remember that song? It's kind of funny because that song would play in the clubs a lot, but it really kind of encapsulated what I think a lot of people viewed the nightlife experience of. It was an escape to let loose and like shrug off the baggage of whatever stress you've accumulated that week through your work or whatever. And I think people are actually like, and that's not going anywhere. I don't think that's ever going to go away fully. I think it's just part of the human condition. But I have noticed in terms of cultural relevance, that sentiment has actually been somewhat slowly and gradually rejected. I think a lot of people are actually trying to take their entertainment, like nightlife experiences, and rather than viewing them as escapes, they want to make it part of their sustaining identity. And I think a lot of that is showing up in rave culture. I think it's super fascinating. Like I was at Decadence Festival a little bit earlier this year, and like some girl gave me these like fuzzy balls and stuff. Like handing stuff out like this is super common at raves. There's a whole like a culture around that. Rave culture is very welcoming. It's very communal, but there's also a fair share of status signaling inside of it as well, which I'm also going to talk about. And if it's something that you're curious about trying, or maybe it's something you actively do and just kind of are listening to me, riff on it. I think there's some interesting insights about it. And the first thing, like I said, is I think it's, again, indicative of a switch from seeing entertainment as an escape to part of your identity. And it also factors into how overall welcoming it is. Like, truly, if you go to a bar or a club, I don't think most people associate that experience with friendly, everyone's getting along. Like, it kind of has a cliquish stereotype about it. People, stick to their own tables. People, don't want to be approached by strangers. That's kind of a prevailing cultural view of the nightclub bar crawl experience. Now, that said, it's, I think, obviously objectively untrue. Like, people meet each other all the time when they go out. But I think, especially post-pandemic, there's been sort of this shift away from meeting new people through those kinds of experiences and rather through curated third spaces. That's kind of the buzzword right now. And I think that raves are starting to fit that bill. And they actually have been for a while. It might actually be on the tail end of that. It might be cresting right now. We'll see. But a lot of that is owed to how welcoming the rave community is. That said, it's not without its caveats. There's definitely a lot about raving that is not for everybody. And I'm going to get into that too. It can be potentially pretty overwhelming. So many different, artists, so many different styles, so many different types of people. There is somewhat of a substance culture and drug culture around raving. I absolutely know people who do it sober, myself included. But I also know people who might want to avoid situations where they might find pressure to do that. That might be a reason someone might want to stay away from the rave culture, being totally honest. And I think something else is really interesting about festivals, like EDM shows, rave culture. One is, like, I think it rightfully has a reputation for being less about status signaling and that. But I don't know. I go to shows fairly frequently doing coverage for Legendary Life Media, and the VIP sections go off. And I don't know, they have giant like neon letters usually with signs and like hyperbolic rave fashion. Everything there is super flashy. So I'm not saying it's necessarily specific to the VIP section, but I think it's so funny how like rave culture has its origins in being like a counterculture where like everyone's welcome. It's for the outcasts. It's the other thing. But now within club environments, you're seeing these delineations that show up really everywhere. I think it has a lot more to do with the way crowds show up to clubs, and it's more about human nature than it is about anything else. I will say though, VIP is a little overrated in the club scene. I still get VIP, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not worth it by any means, but VIP is kind of like, I would say the best parts of VIP, if you're at a rave or a festival, is the bathrooms. Like, probably the best part of it. It's less crowded, which is nice if you want to avoid crowds. But it's not like it's without its drawbacks. You're missing most of the show if you're up that close in VIP. Same thing with GA if you're like in the very front. It's cool to see the artist up close, but like the light show is usually from like the back where you're seeing like everything. You usually want to be like kind of in the mid-range to really get the full experience of the show. And it's not even really possible to do that with VIP. Now there are exceptions. Like there are some shows where you'll have like a certain view that is a little bit better, but honestly, like a lot of times if I get tickets to a rave, I'll get VIP to enjoy the like lack of crowdedness and the like luxury areas to hang out. But if I'm actually going to see the show, I'll go back into GA and I'll watch it from GA because that's usually the best view. Just kind of an ironic thing about raves and EDM shows and stuff. But yeah, the phenomenon overall is really interesting. Another thing that if you're looking to get into rave and EDM culture, or even if you're just looking to check out like a rave show, I would just not be too worried about like all the intricacies. It can be easy to get overwhelmed in the rave scene. There's so many different types of, like within the genre of EDM, there's subgenres within subgenres. There's different types of dubstep. There's different types of house. You have your mid-tempos and your drum and bass and like all these different things that I still don't fully get. I'll probably never fully get them. I still love going to these shows, but I'm not going to memorize all these different vernaculars. It's just never going to happen. And there's also, again, like I said, some pressure to get into the like substance and drug scene in the festival rave community. People are generally really respectful. It's not like a peer pressure type situation, but it is part of the culture. That's just a fact. There's no getting around that. But I managed to actually very much enjoy EDM shows and raves sober. I know many other people who do. Something else too that I think a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to raves, super underappreciated, the light shows. And I mean, clearly it's part of the scene, like the production is a huge aspect. People go just for that. But I'm really talking about like the combination of music and lights and productions, that kind of thing. Because to me, and I could be absolutely wrong here, any DJs who come across this who say I'm totally wrong and want to blow me up in the comments, please do it. But I would think that as a DJ, and I know nothing about DJing, I'm not a DJ, that it's just as much about music engineering as it is about music artistry. That's just baked into the nature of what the practice is. And it naturally makes sense if you're doing all this engineering on the audio front. It makes sense that they'd apply that same kind of engineering to their production. And that's definitely something that makes going to one of these EDM shows really spectacular if you're able to fully take that in and appreciate it. So if you're wanting to check out an EDM show, really absorb like the full experience. Don't focus just on the music, although the music is spectacular, but it's easy to, if that's all you're looking at, you're not taking in the full experience. You're zoning in too much on just one aspect of it. Something I think is super interesting, just as kind of a cultural observation with all this and the way that a lot of people have been moving from traditional nightlife experiences to EDM, is like when I was a kid, whenever I saw a movie or a TV show, and I've seen memes saying the same thing too, that had like a nightclub in it, or if I saw like an MTV video that had a club in it, it was usually just like a bunch of people dancing and having a good time. And like there's obviously like all kinds of other things involved, but like the forefront was people on the dance floor dancing around. I think just over time, I don't know if that used to be the case and it changed, but like by the time I was of age to be partying around in nightclubs and going to these kinds of places, that's not what was going on. Like there's still a dance floor and there's still some people dancing, and of course there's music, but I feel like in most nightclubs right now, not that I'm taking a dump on nightclubs at all. I still love nightclubs. I spend almost every weekend at nightclubs. Partially for what I do, but also because I love it. But I will say with nightclubs, usually the music doesn't really seem to be there to be danced to. It's just there to kind of cover the awkwardness that would be there if it was silent. And it's just ambient music that people listen to while they sip on their drinks, which is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of people, as that became more and more the case, missed the true dance floor dancing type experience. And that definitely comes through if you go to a EDM show or an EDM festival. Like the entire GA floor becomes a dance floor, basically. People really let loose there. And I think that's part of why EDM culture has grown so much, because it really embraces the actual music component of partying. So if that's something that you want out of your nightlife experience, absolutely EDM is a good place for you to kind of explore. Something I definitely noticed. Yeah, and also if you're going to a show, I know I was talking a little bit of crap about VIP earlier, but VIP is still absolutely like overall worth it. It's night and day when it comes to how crowded they can get. Also, a lot of people don't talk about this. Free tip if you're going to an EDM show, bring earplugs. Yes, the music is amazing. It'll actually help you enjoy the music better if you're wearing earplugs. Like people who are younger, and I'm still on the younger end, but like people who are younger, I feel like think they don't need them. They feel like their eardrums are invincible because they're not so old, but it whittles away at you. That's what I've heard. So bring earphones. It actually makes it better. I think you can get like the insert stuff that like are basically invisible pretty cheap if you want to get ear protection for a rave. But yeah, I mean, I've had crazy experiences at raves. Experiences that are very unique to the EDM scene. But I also can see why, a lot of people who aren't necessarily looking for crazy experiences would want to go to EDM shows. Here's who I think EDM isn't for. I don't think EDM is for people, one, get overstimulated very easily, and two, don't find enjoyment in like the hypnotic side of music. I think that's also something really funny that I was actually having a conversation about with Brandon, my co-founder, not that long ago, is I feel like DJs are basically modern day shamans. Isn't that kind of funny? Like when you think about it, what do DJs do? They play hyper-rhythmic, hypnotic, trance-inducing music. Whether or not that's the goal of the music, that's kind of how all EDM music comes out. And you have a bunch of people, many of them are tripping on like all kinds of psychedelic drugs, and they're having these profound experiences from their point of view. I mean, everyone has their own view on what happens actually when you take those kind of substances, but these people are having, from their point of view, hyper profound experiences in this venue of a bunch of other people dancing together to these rhythmic types of beats and music. And as a result, especially with all the production, the DJ is basically guiding them through their trip. So if you think about it, a DJ is basically just the modern day shaman. Isn't that funny to think about? And we've just kind of built a party culture around it, which I think is super interesting. And if you're the kind of person who that whole dynamic kind of turns you off, I'm not super into it, and I'm able to enjoy it just as a music show and a cool experience, and I have a lot of fun with it. But like, if you're really against that, I can see why EDM shows might not be a fit for you. I mean, no harm, no foul. And I think that also explains why so many people get so devoted to EDM and like music artists. Like, people like don't just love their favorite DJ, they get obsessed with their favorite DJ sometimes. Which is the case to a degree of any music artist, right? Like, all music artists have fandoms, but DJs in particular have pretty radical followings with their own built-in subcultures that go really deep. Even like DJs that aren't that big relative to like the big guys like the John Summits and the Dom Dallas and the, XYZ, the Disco Lands. There's way bigger examples I could probably even name, but like even like the mid-tier DJs have these crazy devoted fan followings. And I think it's because of that. I think it might be because of the shaman kind of relationship, which is super interesting. But hey, I mean, if you think this is something that can be incorporated into your lifestyle, by all means, go for it. Let me know how it went. Let me know how you think. Let me know your stories about EDM in the comments over whatever platform you're listening on. But I'm going to wrap it up here. This has been Josh Hoskins with Legendary Life Media, Lifestyle Blueprints. Talk to you on the next episode.